ready. I don't know, let's do a quick introduction. Does everybody wanna, John's DPW?
Sure, Sean Harrington, how you doing? Nice to see you, Sean Harrington, Assistant DPW Director.
Hi, Beth Cornell Smith, Human Resources Director.
Rob Lucier, Director of Planning and Engineering.
And Mike Hardy, Building Commissioner.
Maris Pizzotto, General Clerk.
Hillary Alley, Administrative Assistant to the Board of Selectmen.
Karen Dutil, IT Director.
Jesse. Hey, Jesse's got the biggest job over here. He's our PFAS guy.
DPW Director, yes.
Director, DPW Director.
And no select board members here?
Don is doing.
Don Martinez,
Yeah.
Don Martinez, remotely joining, sorry, the family issue. I need to work from home today.
Pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you. I would like to connect with you at some time, Congressman, regarding veterans. So hopefully I can get some contact information. We could schedule a brief 10 or 15-minute call about veteran services.
Sure. Yeah. Is it, oh, I should have asked you from the beginning. Do you mind if we record the session? Is that okay? Yeah, excellent. We'd like to share it with the other select board members. Everybody had different things going on, so we're running both that as much of an audience as we'd like to. Would you like to hear from what we've got going on in town first, or would you like to get into your presentation?
No, please tell me. I'm
Yeah.
here to listen. We've been tracking on the PFAS issue, obviously, because last year we secured the $1 million for PFAS.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
We're definitely tracking the Hartford Ave plan and would love to get an update on how that's going.
Fantastic. So what we have here today is a little bit of, let's see. A brief overview for you, essentially where Bellingham was, just before PFAS became an up and coming issue, where we are present day and what we're looking at in the future as far as operational projections and how we plan to combat the PFAS issue up at our Hartford Ave filtration plants. So Bellingham essentially, like most communities, had issues with drinking water, iron and manganese, very similar to other communities in New England. And right around the late 2010s or so, we moved forward with filtration at two sites, our Rentham Road filtration plant and our Hartford Ave upgrades, essentially localized treatment at these two locations to try to remove iron and manganese, treat for bacteria, things of that nature. At this time, we converted our previous corrosion control facilities to raw water to pump to these two locations for the efficient treatment of water. As a result, we did inherit two green tin filtration plants, which was before PFAS was actually an up and coming regulated contaminant. So it does a fantastic job at removing the suspended solids from the water, but obviously PFAS is another layer that requires additional treatment. So we do plan to utilize the existing building at Hartford, whereas Rentham doesn't require the upgrades because the level of PFAS that we're seeing on our south side of town isn't as elevated as it is on the north side of town. So back in 2015, these upgrades between the two locations cost upward of $15.5 million. And they've done a phenomenal job of treating the water up until PFAS.
And we've been right around the PFAS limit, right around the 20 parts per trillion, just below, just above. Obviously, the goal has changed to try and get to no detection at all. And part of the issue for us is we spent $15.5 million 8 years ago, 9 years ago, and had we known the PFAS was an issue, nobody did that for the most part. It would have been something that could have incorporated into those filtration plants, but unfortunately, here we are.
Are you testing for all 8 that are going to be evaluated now? Because
Yes.
the federal has 6 and then Massachusetts has 2 additional. So it's going to be 8 overall.
We have been since the beginning. So it wasn't required, but yes, we have tested for all 8.
And that is, so it's 4 parts per trillion in combination, right?
It's yes, not to exceed 4 parts per trillion in any of the criteria. Yes. Yeah.
And you're at 20, you said?
At the north, well, we have 11 wells. fully integrated system. But what we're seeing at the Hartford Ave treatment facility is
Combined.
it's 18 to 21, Justin, you
Yes,
say in that range?
We did exceed, at one point, we've come down slightly and we're kind of hovering right around that 20-part range,
You
so.
really gotta take a running average, right? Because there's a lot of variability, not a lot, but some variability in that testing. And do you have any sense for what the original cause might have been? Did you have firefighting or was it a landfill or?
The only thing that it's right along Route 495, so there may be some factors that contributed to 495, but we did use a lot of the foam. It was an area where there was very much prone to wood fires and that type, brush fires and that type of thing.
Got
And they did use the foam excessively. I shouldn't say excessively to the extent that they needed it, but we only got rid of it a few years ago. We had quite a bit of it stored. So that's the assumption. And the fact that most of that activity was in the vicinity, Bellingham's 10 miles long and 4 miles wide. The north end of town is showing it at that treatment plant and the south is showing it. So nothing detectable in south, right?
It's it's in the single digits on the south side of town, so it's very limited, in comparison.
Spent 70 years spraying PFAS all over the place.
Yeah.
And, just been cycling through everything.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, it's been quite problematic and, again, we're continuing to monitor, keeping that 20-part, in mind. This graph actually shows, some of the historical data, where we did exceed, we did come back down, but it's kind of hovering right around that point.
So one of the things that we raised in the Clean Water Conference is we had some technologists come in to review the state of the commercial landscape for PFAS destruction technology. Are you using the not carbon capture, but the carbon
The
filtration?
GAC, yeah, that is one of the, that is what has been proposed, yes. We plan to.
One thing to explore, because the strong readout from the technologists is that electrochemical oxidation is likely to be the most effective way of so the carbon, one, is going to get expensive because there's limited number of suppliers and everyone's going to be chasing those vendors in the next 5 years because of the rules and the funding. But two, they don't actually destroy PFAS, right? They capture it and then they get sent over to a landfill or they get burned and it goes right back out. Whereas electrochemical oxidation destroys those fluorine bonds. And the challenge that we have though with this, and this is an ongoing, I think, innovative opportunity though, is they don't operate at scale. So a municipal water treatment facility scale, there's too many gallons per minute really to do it efficiently, although there's some playing around with that. But if you have smaller volumes at these wells that are all then going towards this treatment facility, Hartford Ave, maybe you can apply it there at smaller volumes before it gets to the municipal treatment facility, and it's much cheaper, I think. We're happy we'll broker some intros if you want.
Absolutely.
I don't have hopefully there's gonna be a lot of companies offering this stuff in different ways that you can try to review. But I wouldn't just single-mindedly pursue the carbon filters is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
I would look at other options as
Yeah,
well.
Very interesting. Yeah.
We've done our pilot study. We know, what the limits are and, we've got a proposal.
Yeah.
For the construction and it's expensive. And as you say, the operations, one of the slides we're showing here, what it's gonna cost, estimated to cost to maintain, the system on an annual basis.
Well, do you also have because you have to replace the filters too.
Yes.
A little bit of a razor blade model, right?
So, we have, projected 132,000 per year, and, what we're projecting right now is actually a total of 4 filters, so that's continually replacing, as the media is spent.
Got it. It was Mansfield, yeah. You should talk to Mansfield. They just put in a new one. And we met with the Mansfield DPW director and he was showing us the new facility. Find out, it's probably worth finding out what their operating costs really are day in, day out. And I do worry that they're gonna go up, maybe more than the vendors are saying because of the demand for them.
We're estimating about $325,000 a year. It's an operation.
I think he also did say though, the good news is I think he said they were lasting longer than he thought they were going to, filters.
Interesting. That's great news.
We'll get you his name and contact him, but the Mansfield DPW director, He was pretty switched on.
Excellent, excellent. I appreciate that. Yes, and these costs again are for one of the two facilities. So factor in the Rentham, which again doesn't have a PFAS, but water treatment in general. We're looking at about $500,000 per year for chemicals, operational costs for electricity, heating, things of that nature. So
So right, this has only come in, our engineers have only come in with the one recommendation. I know they looked at other options, but primarily it's this is their approach.
yeah, so they recommended as far as the quality of water coming in for Bellingham, the GAC, granular activated carbon. However, another option was presented, that's the resin, the floral resin. It's a bit more expensive. It does filter out to a finer extent. We do have the option to go to that type of filtration if need be down the road. The problem is, similar to GAC, it does get spent up. You do have to, get rid of it in the long term, but operationally it is more expensive routes.
We're appropriating funds in November for the actual project, but if there are alternatives, such as you're talking about with the electrochemical oxidation, then is there a timing, sequence, Jesse, as far as when this plant has to be up and running? I know you're working closely with DEP.
Right, so right now what we're looking at, yeah, and keeping in mind, we're hovering below that threshold. However, with new regulations as they come aboard, that would be something that we would want to monitor.
Yeah, it's 2029, I think, is when there's real teeth, right, Jenna? 2029, the federal rules have teeth. And then I think there's frankly also gonna be some good faith work even at that point as well, federal to local, so. I'm a little torn because part of me thinks get in early before the inflation happens on the supply chain, right? You get this bid secured, and part of me thinks how fast does the technology mature such that maybe there's a better alternative? That's the tension I have right now in my head as I'm thinking about this project with you. I think it would be worth talking to some of the people who are experts in electrochemical oxidation and see if they have anything that's compelling to you.
Are there plants out there that have been built to treat PFAS with it?
So they have right now, there's actually a company in my district in Mansfield, coincidentally along with the Mansfield DPW guy. The company's called Clarity, and they are doing it, but they're doing it, like I said, at pretty small. It's highly effective, but it's at higher concentration. So they're taking like landfill leakage. They could not handle a municipal water facility level. So this would have to be some other location that, downstream the PFAS was diluted. So that I can't speak to.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know if there's something coming.
If there's something coming up, exactly. And that's who we brought into this conference was someone who invests in these new clean water technologies to be like, well, what are you seeing coming down the road? And the short answer for that presentation, my takeaway was yes, but you guys obviously, how much you want to bank on venture capitalists investing, right? So.
Yeah, but to your point, I've got to think that there are going to be more efficient ways as more and more communities are addressing this kind of money we're talking about, that there's going to be better ways to do it. We have 5 years, it really makes it a difficult decision. You're right. I mean, we're saying $21 million today, 3 years from now, it'll probably be $30 million.
Or it could be 2, because there's some
Right.
new game-changing tech, right?
Exactly.
And this was the point of why Congress did this, and the administration was to create a marketplace for people to innovate into, right? We have the rules that set a low threshold, and we have $21 billion in federal funding to try to push municipalities. It's not, the 21 billion by itself is not enough, obviously, it's got to match with state and local, but it at least is compelling some of that movement.
We've been fortunate to have the SRF approve 15
Good.
million as well.
That's a good program.
Yeah, it's a good program. It's just a matter of how long, that authorization is held for us. I'm sure it's time sensitive as well.
Well, here's what we'll do. We'll make the intro to the Mansfield Water Treatment Facility Director, because he may have, they just installed it, so he may have some learnings about that process. And then we'll connect you with someone who's an expert on electrochemical oxidation
Fantastic.
as well.
Please, thank you.
They just came to the conference.
That's the last slide, Jesse.
Yes, and this was just an overview of what we're expecting as far as the construction costs and O&M related to the PFAS removal. So just wanted to give you a brief overview of how it's how PFAS has impacted Bellevue. You know, what we're looking at. You know, essentially this is a burden, and we appreciate everything that is being supplied to us at this time. So
You're holding the $1 million in reserve for this potential project?
Absolutely. And again, thank you. And Dana and Janelle were tremendous in getting us up to speed as far as the process, and not a lot of experience pursuing, legislative funds like that. So it was very helpful.
It is certainly,
Yeah.
it's always a process in Washington.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
hopefully it's been unlocked, so.
That's great. So, any silver lining out there?
I think the silver lining is that really smart people are trying to come up with different means than just the GAC. I think that's the silver lining to me, but I don't think we're gonna be stuck for 10 years into this pattern of just the only way to do it is with the granular activated carbon. The other silver lining I would point to, not gonna help in the near term, is ultimately, I think Congress has to just ban the use of these things. But right now, we're regulating their acceptable threshold in potable water, but 300 plus of these chemicals are still allowed to be used in semiconductors or pharmaceuticals or cookware or stain resistant carpets or I probably, given what we know about their effect on human and environmental health, I don't know why we would continue to allow them to be used in production and manufacturing. It's going to continue to exacerbate the problem.
Yeah, it seems to have been a topic of conversation for the last 4 years with us. I mean, we've obviously been working hard on the issue once it became known to us, and obviously the public's concerned about it too. Anytime you talk about drinking water and contaminants, it's a major issue. We talk about 20 parts per trillion. Obviously that's probably an eyedropper in a swimming pool, but it's enough obviously to make people sick.
It is, and that's the tension, right? Is this, you want to be a good steward of public health without causing the panic unduly, and so my hometown, like, I drink the water and get my kids the water, I also want them to get the water in a better place, right? So it's this tension there.
Yeah.
It's kind of analogous to what happened with the ozone layer in the 80s. With all the chemicals that were depleting the ozone layer, and everyone was like, oh, shoot. And then the policymakers and the private sector worked together, and it actually was a success story. Anything else you want to go over?
As far as PFAS or anything?
Or anything?
Yeah, one of the things, I won't say it's frustrating, Jesse can chime in because DEP they've worked with us, but we've had a tremendous amount of housing growth in town. We're an MBTA community, so we're doing what we need to do as far as getting into compliance with the zoning with that. Probably, I'm gonna say 1,000 homes in the last 5 or 6 years. For a community of 17,000, that's quite a bit.
Single family or multi?
Both. Yeah, we've had a combination of the two. We've had apartment complex of 250 units. We've had multiple condominium developments with triplexes of 100 each, and then we've had single family homes as well. And now, of course, they're all zero fossil fuel developments as well. So they all have the heat pumps for all the utility. But the issue is the water withdrawal permits, and I know it's more of I think it's a state issue, right?
yeah, this is
As much as anything. They keep wanting us, they keep wanting to take away, they want us to build more homes and increase the opportunity for housing. At the same time, they're saying, we want you to pump less water, and they're trying to hold us to standards that work for us years ago. We have the ability to pump about 3 million gallons.
roughly, yes. Yep.
And I think got permits for 1.6 or 1.7 million gallons. And we put our restrictions in place every year. It's a requirement that, for conservation purposes, which is great. But the issue is, as we add more and more homes, we want to see that withdrawal permit adjusted upwards. We've invested an awful lot of money in our water system. We have an enterprise system, so the ratepayers pay the bulk of it. Although one of the unique aspects of Proposition 2.5 is it allows the local select board or council to exempt debt associated with water improvements. So we've done that. So like a $15 million project essentially is debt that's exempted by the select board. So that's not all on the ratepayers, and much like the PFAS proposal, we wouldn't put all on the ratepayers. Ratepayers will pay some of it, but the bulk of it will be through taxation, through, I would imagine, through exempted debt, which is how we've done our other projects. But that's would you say that continues to be an issue for us?
Yeah, it is certainly the hurdle, like Dennis had mentioned, we're pushing for this growth. We want to see the community thrive, but one of the issues that we have is the capacity issues. Essentially conserve more water, and we do, as you had mentioned, we put out our restrictions, fix leaks, try anywhere to, limit the amount of water that we're, essentially forced to waste, to some degree, but what we're seeing as a result is the increase in residences throughout Bellingham doesn't really match up to what we're permitted to withdraw from the ground. So it's a bit of a hurdle.
I'm not versed on that. I'm not familiar with.
It is something that will continue to work with DEP. As I say, we haven't gotten to the point yet where they say, they're going to penalize us for exceeding our withdrawal permits. We're not there yet. But it's always a concern, especially when we're looking at large scale development like we've had in town.
Your state rep and state senator helpful on this?
We haven't really had a lot of dialogue with Representative Soda yet, because we didn't want to jump out and start getting aggressive with DEP until we get to a point where they're saying, we try to maintain a good relationship with them nationally, the state agency, but it may very well come to a time where we have to reach out to our state senator.
I'm here from Representative.
Yeah, right. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. I know.
I saw in your recent, speaking of housing, I did see in your recent town meeting, you talked about your plan was to identify the zoning requirements for the MBTA Communities Act in an area where new development would probably not necessarily occur, but instead utilize existing housing. So you're basically trying to identify the tracks, and because I'm very familiar with this kind of loophole in law where you can basically say that existing housing is undevelopable land. Is your intent then that you do not want to create more housing under this law?
We will, Rob's here, and Rob's been working with it extensively. Essentially, what it would provide for is, we actually are looking at two areas that have apartment complexes and excess land as well. So the proposal, which we're actually presenting tomorrow at 1 o'clock at the senior center, again tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, would provide for a minimum of 200 additional units.
Correct.
200, I think the exposure would be 230 units, because there's already an existing 500 units there. So it's 550 units there. So there would be opportunity for additional housing, multifamily housing, but not the 750. It would overlap over, the zoning would actually overlap the two existing areas and provide for we've been approached by one of the apartment complexes that actually wants to put another building, the one right down Route 140 that was built just a short time ago. Actually, it's still under construction. I think they're putting up their last building, and they want to put another building there. So we've identified enough land for them to put another structure there on that same property. And the other one, which is just half a mile up the street, both within, less than a mile of the MBTA station, would accommodate that. So
So you could do 750, but you're trying to do 250, and the 500 will be.
the 500 is there. Theoretically, someone could take down the 500, but they're not going to. We recognize that. So there will be an opportunity for additional housing. One of the things that we wrote to the governor about multiple times was the fact that Bellingham is a housing choice community, which recognized the fact that the 80 or 90 housing choice communities generated 80% of all the new housing in Massachusetts over the last 5 years. So we've been a part of that. We've had tremendous housing growth in the community. We're saying, shouldn't there be some consideration to communities that have stepped up? We've got 300 units that were just built, maybe a half a mile from the MBTA station. We've got another 300 just up the street here, multifamily housing. We've got, under construction right now, we have 110 unit condominium development, which is under construction. And we have several, I think 220 single family homes under construction right now. Which keeps our building commissioner, very busy.
Yeah, with a few projects that are starting as well.
Yeah.
That haven't even broke ground, but they're just starting, they're all approved.
Yeah,
Well, I certainly understand that, housing development is, it can create some indigestion within the community. It also is good for the local economy, and it's gonna be good for Bellingham in the medium and long run as well, right? I mean, a big challenge that's happening in a number of cities and towns in my district is they are not producing this amount of housing, and their school enrollment is declining, their water infrastructure is becoming increasingly hard to support with their existing tax base. They don't have a commercial tax base because they don't really have the foot traffic. And that's a very hard set of challenges to have, whereas if you were bringing in, especially with the apartments that they're reasonably priced, for bringing in more people, you can create an upward virtuous cycle as opposed to a much tougher downward one.
yeah.
I think it's great that Bellingham's been building housing. I would encourage you to build more through this law as well.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't mention, we have a project right behind us, actually, that circles the municipal center. It'll actually exit out over by the Walgreens where you came in, and another egress over here. It's, I think it's 160 units. Yeah, 60 of which are townhouses going right behind us. And the nice thing about it is sidewalks. One of the big issues we have is the rural farming community, so we didn't have really as the town built, we didn't have the pedestrian friendly neighborhoods that we'd like to have, and we're doing more and more of that. So what'll be nice here is people will be able to walk to our town common across the street, or go to the restaurants up the other end, on 140, and sorry, I keep pointing, I know where they are, but you know, but general directions. It's something that, again, and that was a project that we did by way of overlay. It doesn't comply with zoning. It's much more dense.
40R.
It was something that we did. We actually created an overlay district on our own. It's not a 40R, but it was an overlay district, I think. We have an inclusionary zoning in town, so all projects, most communities have a minimum 10%, but the overlay was to give us a combination. One, we have the density, and two, they're doing a lot of infrastructure for us as well to help the pedestrian friendly of the project. But the MBTA zoning, we looked at lots of different strategies. We used one of the consultants that the state is paying for, and this was one of the options that we saw that made sense because it allows for additional multifamily housing right where it already exists. So it should be an easy sell to the community as far as, the additional units. They're not going to be, any more impactful than what you're seeing right now. Yeah, there'll be another 100 or 200 units between the two, but, they're already at places that accommodate fairly significant multifamily home. So whether you go up Route 126 on your way out or down Route 140, you'll see apartment complexes. But then again, you're going to Millville, so you probably won't go that way. You'll probably get on 126 past our middle school. But yeah, so we've done a lot for housing in Bellingham, and I think as a community, we really stepped up. We're way above our 40B numbers and have been for quite some time. So.
Anything from Sutter's office? No, nothing here. We're just willing to help out with whatever funding we need to receive on the state end. Yeah, and I'm gonna take back notes, obviously, to representatives and ask him about what he thinks. He's how he can be here.
Yeah, we'll probably have a sit down with them to talk about the water
Yeah.
withdrawal. As I say, I didn't want to come out too aggressively before.
Right, yeah. I wrote down those numbers you gave us too.
Yep,
and I'll put those
Yep.
down, yeah.
Excellent. We very much, I think this is like a third or fourth time you come down and watching the parade with you, and you couldn't be more visible. We really appreciate it. I think of all the officials that we've had, Congress State. I've been here for many years. You've made yourself, tremendously accessible, and we enjoy seeing you on television regularly as well.
Appreciate
You
that.
get a lot of face time. Yeah,
Well, I'm sure that's,
yeah.
I'm sure some people do and some people don't, but
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
No, we're here to support, particularly on the water issue. We've been trying to plug away on that for years now, and we earmarks, because I understand the disproportionate burden that Massachusetts faces. We're kind of densely populated here in Massachusetts. We've got older water infrastructure, we've had high standards, so it's expensive here, I get that. We're gonna try to help as much as possible. And we'll make those two connections that I spoke to you about.
Anybody else want to raise anything?
Now's the time.
Well, it's a beautiful day. Well, 20 minutes extra outside.
Yes.
Good. Thank you for your time.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We're up to Millville.